This is All Across America.
Yeah, that's my claim to fame. That story. Everybody knows me by that story. And by everybody, I just mean the people that I work with, because nobody knows who I am. But it's and to this day, Jimmy Kimmel just 2 days ago or 3 days ago used that exact video when talking about frozen iguanas. Because it's like the only because I don't. Nobody has since, because I was the first one to film iguanas. I went and filmed that by myself. To film iguanas in the middle of the night. I was there from 11 to 4 in the middle of the night.
Waiting for an
And I had
iguana
the camera
to fall
set,
out of the
and
tree.
there were iguanas everywhere, and they were falling everywhere. But every time I would set up my camera to get it, I would miss it because it would just start falling. So I decided I just have to be patient. I just set up the camera for I think it was 30 minutes, and it fell. It was like hanging on a branch that was so obvious this thing was not going to be able to hold the weight of this for much longer. It had clearly fallen from somewhere up higher, and right around it there were other iguanas dangling from branches too. But the other branches were bigger, and it didn't look like those were going to work out. And then everywhere underneath them there was a dozen in just this one spot of iguanas that had fallen already from the branches.
Okay.
So I filmed it, and yes, it went viral back before there were really such things as viral videos.
So, I mean, can you explain why
2011.
2011. Can you explain why?
Yeah, they're an
iguanas were
invasive
falling under the
species.
trees? Right.
Yeah. So they're an invasive species. They were introduced to Florida because of careless pet owners.
Okay.
Typically, Florida is very warm and a perfect second habitat for them. But when it gets really cold, and I think more and more cold snaps like that are happening in Florida. I mean, it was it dipped below freezing, I think, in some areas, hence frozen iguanas, because they're not they're not used to that kind of cold climate. Their body, as almost an emergency response, goes into a hibernative state. Okay. So in theory, they're fine. Although I think that if it remains cold for too long, it's like freezing something. They don't come back to life. Okay. But in theory, for a short period of time, and in Florida, it's never that cold for too long. They thaw out and they come back to their to their environment.
And that was I think you had interviewed a zookeeper or wildlife specialist, and people would bring them into
Ron
their
McGill,
car, and then they would basically wake up in the heat, and people would be startled and freaked out.
Yeah. Ron McGill is Zoo Miami. He's awesome. I think he's still there. He was describing a situation where a guy went with his pickup truck to get all these iguanas that were frozen on the ground. It wasn't really clear what that guy was trying to do, why he was putting them in the back of his pickup, if he knew that they would wake up or something. But I think it was implied in the way that Ron was describing it, and I can't remember the interview at this point. But I remember that one part. So it wasn't clear to me if the guy knew that they would wake up. But I think clearly from how Ron described it, he didn't know, and he was startled to find out that there were a dozen iguanas now alive in the back of his pickup truck, scratching around as he was driving. It's pretty weird.
If you want to find it, easy to find. I'll link it, but just look up Kamikaze iguanas on YouTube. You'll see the video there. To wrap up on
it's riveting stuff.
Riveting. I mean, it is. It's great. I mean, the writing was very good.
I mean, just like this podcast. This podcast is riveting. Wow, my best work.